Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. The phone call that changed everything came on a Wednesday morning while I was fixing a leak under the kitchen sink. My supervisor's voice was steady and businesslike. He said they wanted me as drilling supervisor for a new operation in North Dakota. $210,000 a year, plus a housing allowance, plus the kind of benefits people admire from a distance because they rarely get to see them up close. I hung up and stared at my phone, the water finally quiet behind the valve I just tightened. This was the opportunity one had pushed toward for 8 years. Real money, real responsibility, something I could build and be proud of. I walked into the living room. My wife, Tiana, was curled on the sofa, scrolling on her phone, a designer coffee on the table, silk pajamas catching the afternoon light like a quiet performance. She looked up and asked who had called. I said, "Work. They offer me the drilling supervisor position in North Dakota." She blinked. "North Dakota? Are you serious right now?" "Very serious. It is an incredible opportunity." "I do not care what the pay is," she snapped, setting her cup down hard enough that it splashed onto the glass. "I am not moving to a frozen wasteland, so you can play around on oil rigs." The wordplay sat in the air like a dare. I thought about the nights on rigs, the safety meetings, the long shifts, the slow climb out of entry-level work to something that finally had weight. "I will not sacrifice my lifestyle for your oil field career," she continued. "I have a life here. Friends, the yoga studio, my book club. I am not giving that up, so you can go chase a fantasy in the middle of nowhere." I looked at her. Silk pajamas, perfect nails, comfortable home. Everything built by the checks from the job, she said, sounded like play. "Fair enough," I said. She stopped. "What? You do not want to come? You do not have to." She expected a fight. She expected me to plead and chip away at the offer until it looked like compromise. Instead, I went to the bedroom and pulled my duffel from the closet. "What are you doing?" she asked, following me down the hall. "Packing." "You cannot be serious. You are really going to leave for some temporary job in North Dakota?" "It is not temporary. It is a career move." She appeared in the doorway with folded arms. "So that is it. You are going to abandon our marriage for this?" "I'm not abandoning anything," I said, folding shirts and socks methodical. "I'm taking a job that will set us up for life. You were the one who said you would not sacrifice anything for it." "Because it is ridiculous," she said. "You expect me to sit here and wait while you are off having your adventure?" "It is not an adventure," I said, but in her mind, everything I did that did not center her was a detour. She stared at the bag and the calm way I closed it. "Fine," she said at last. "If that is how you want to play this, then I want a divorce." I stood there and looked at her long enough to read the layers in her expression. Defiance, a set jaw, and something quieter underneath. "All right," I said. "That is all you have to say. What else is there? You made your choice." "My choice. You are the one walking away from everything we built together for some dirty temporary job in the middle of nowhere." "It is not temporary," I said, picking up my laptop bag. "But you are right about one thing. I am walking away." "Good," she said. "I already have better plans for my future. Plans that do not involve waiting around for an oil field worker to come home covered in mud." She said oil field worker like it was a lesser category of person. I walked to the door. "I will have a lawyer contact you about the paperwork." "That is it. You are not even going to fight for us." I turned back. "There is nothing to fight for. You are waiting for me to beg you to see value in what I do. I'm not going to convince someone who has already decided my work has no worth. That is not what It is exactly what you meant." I left. My truck sat in the driveway. I placed my bags in the back and climbed in. Through the front window, I saw her watching, probably waiting for the familiar pattern. Me returning, me apologizing for wanting something larger than comfort. I drove away. The divorce papers arrived by email 2 days later. She moved fast. So did I. I signed them electronically and sent them back. She could keep the house, the furniture, and most of what we had saved together. Starting over with nothing, but my skills and my work ethic felt like a fair trade for what I was getting back. 3 weeks later, I was standing in North Dakota as the sky pulled itself up over rigs and generators and freshly graded gravel roads. The wind pressed at my jacket, and the sun cut across the site in gold lines. The housing allowance covered a clean apartment in Williston. It was modest, quiet, close to the yard. In the evenings, the air smelled like sage and dust, and the horizon held its distance without apology. The work was intense. 12-hour shifts, sometimes 14. I coordinated drilling schedules with the geological team, signed off on safety protocols, held daily briefings, walked the string of equipment with a maintenance lead, and made calls that could cost or save the company millions. My assistant supervisor, Leon Carter, had risen from roughneck to the chair beside mine. He knew the work at hand level, and he knew how to speak to people so they understood. Our safety coordinator, April Simmons, had left corporate consulting for something tangible. She was sharp and tireless, and she caught more near misses than most people even noticed. My crew respected me because I earned it. I did not hide behind a title. If a pump screamed, I was there. If a plan failed, I put my name on the correction. If someone raised a concern, I listened and acted. The money was what they promised. After taxes and living costs, I was saving more in a month than I used to save in a quarter. The company matched retirement contributions at a rate that made my old benefits look like a hand-me-down. But what stuck with me most was not the money. It was the way people leaned in when I spoke at the morning briefing, the way a solution lived or died with my judgment, the way responsibility gathered around the chair where I sat. I did not think much about Tiana. The work took that oxygen. One evening, I opened a social media app out of habit. Tiana's profile filled my timeline. Upscale restaurants in Charlotte, weekend trips to Miami, boutique shopping with captions about living her best life and finally being free from compromise. Every image looked curated to persuade strangers that she was flourishing. The smiles looked near perfect, but something in them did not quite land. I put the phone away and reviewed drilling reports. Whether her performance played well to her audience did not concern me anymore. At work, I built something standard and genuine. Relationships formed around competence. Leon told me about his newborn son at the end of a shift and asked me about pipe specs 10 minutes later. April pushed to add a redundant safety check on the pump-down procedures and then shared a photo of her mother's 85th birthday cake. We were not performing our lives. We were building them. The regional manager, Gregory Lawson, came through our site in my third month. He pulled me aside after the inspection. "Impressive work," he said. "Production is ahead of schedule. The safety record is as clean as any site I have. Your crew speaks highly of you." "I'm doing the job," I said. "It is more than that," he replied. "We are expanding. There may be bigger opportunities. Are you interested in staying long-term?" "Absolutely." That weekend, I sat on my small porch with a single beer, watching the evenings settle across the equipment yard. I felt the quiet form its own kind of commitment. My phone buzzed with a notification, another one of Tiana's posts, a charity gala this time. Professional photos, a white smile, a caption about generosity. The dress looked expensive but worn. The smile did not reach her eyes. I deleted the notification without reading the comments. 6 months into the job, corporate promoted me to senior drilling supervisor. The salary bumped again. The housing allowance increased, and a vehicle stipend covered gas, maintenance, and the winter tires I needed on those county roads. I set a strict budget and watched the accounts grow. Wealth, quietly accumulated, changes how you move in the world. Around that time, Tiana's sister, Maya, called me. We had not spoken since the divorce. "I know you two are done," she said, "but I thought you should know. She is struggling." I considered hanging up. Then I asked how. "She lost her job," Maya said. "Budget cuts officially. But her boss mentioned attendance issues. There were too many long weekends." "The house?" I asked. "It is in foreclosure," Maya said. "The settlement funds are gone." Gone. 6 months of performing independence had burned through everything she had insisted on taking. "She has been asking family for loans," Maya said, "but no one has that kind of money." She sold her car and bought something used. The lifestyle, well, it was all on credit cards. I listened and said very little. The consequences were not mine to manage. "I am not asking you to help," Maya added. "I just wanted you to know." "I appreciate the call," I said. After I hung up, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee and thought about the difference between reality and presentation. One builds a life. The other rents an image. 2 weeks later, my phone blew up during lunch. The company's external relations team had published an article about our operation's success and tagged me by name as a key leader on the project. The post highlighted our production numbers, our spotless safety record, and our expansion plans. It quoted Gregory Lawson, disciplined operation, rare attention to detail, exemplary leadership. By the time I finished my shift, the article had been shared across industry pages, and my inbox was full of messages from people I had worked with years ago. Buried in a comment thread was a personal share. Someone wrote, "Remember when this guy was just doing temporary oil field work? Look at him now." Another commenter added, "Wait, is that your ex-husband?" The post was public. I realized the breadcrumb trail led back to Tiana's circle. Whether she saw it did not matter to me, but I imagined her reaction when she did. 2 days later, Maya called again. "She knows," Maya said, "about your job, about the money. She has been researching drilling supervisor salaries for a week." "How is she taking it?" I asked. "Not well. She's telling people she had no idea the oil industry paid like that. She says you never told her the potential." I told her, I said. She did not want to hear it. "She has been asking where you're living, how long the job lasts, whether you're seeing anyone," Maya said. "Tell her the truth," I said. "I'm doing well, and it is none of her business." That night, I posted one photo from the yard, a sunset over the rigs, with a short caption about gratitude and calculated risks. I do not post often. This one I meant. The post did what I needed it to do: reconnect with people who respect the work and nothing else. According to the app's analytics, someone viewed my profile multiple times that week without liking anything. The name was familiar. The first message came on a Thursday morning while I reviewed safety procedures. "Hey," Tiana wrote. "Just wondering how you're doing. Hope everything is going well up there." I ignored it. 3 days later, saw an article about oil industry growth. "Sounds like you were right about the opportunities. Always knew you were smart about these things." The rewrite of history was almost surgical. Always knew. Then, "I have been thinking about our conversation before you left. I think I misunderstood what you were trying to tell me about the job." Misunderstood smoothed over every sharp thing she had said. A few days later she wrote again. "I have been reading about drilling operations. I had no idea how complex and important the work is. You must be doing really well." Another. "Ran into your old colleague. He mentioned seeing your name in an industry publication. So proud of what you have accomplished." Proud. The word sat oddly in my mouth when I read it. The messages kept coming, each one shaped to be more thoughtful than the last, each one testing the water. Then came this. "I know things ended badly, and I take responsibility for my part in that. I have had time to think about what really matters, and I realize I may have been too focused on surface-level things instead of supporting your goals. Would love to catch up if you're open to it." I thought about our last morning in that house, the contempt in her voice when she called my work a dirty temporary job, the certainty in her stride as she walked away to protect her comfort. For a moment, I considered blocking the number and being done with it. Then I decided something else. If we were going to have a conversation, it would be on my terms. I wrote back, "Things have been busy here, but going well. Thanks for reaching out." She replied within an hour. "That is great to hear. I would love to know more about what you're working on. The industry seems fascinating when you really understand it. Maybe we could grab coffee when you are in town." I let 2 days pass. "I will be back in Charlotte next month for business," I wrote. "I can spare an hour for coffee." Her response came immediately. "That would be wonderful. Just name a time and place. I am really looking forward to catching up." Coffee was not my plan. Over the next week, I arranged something else entirely. I picked an upscale restaurant, the Sterling on 5th Street, busy enough to have an audience and refined enough to keep voices measured. I reserved a table with clear sight lines from the entrance. Then I called a colleague who would be in town that week. Jordan Pierce was a geologist with a sharp mind and a calm presence, 5 years younger than Tiana, with the kind of confidence that does not need loudness to be seen. I explained the situation. She laughed. "You want me to join you while your ex-wife arrives expecting reconciliation?" "Something like that," I said. "If she dismissed your career when it mattered and wants to circle back now that it is valuable, that is not partnership," Jordan said. "It is convenience." "Exactly." "All right," she said. "I will help." I sent Tiana the restaurant, date, and time. She replied with a stream of messages about how much she missed our conversations. The night of the reservation, I arrived 15 minutes early with Jordan. She wore a navy dress, professional, elegant, easy. The hostess seated us at a table visible from the door. Jordan asked if I was sure. I was. "This is a lesson," I said. Not for revenge. For clarity. Understood, she said, giving me the kind of look a colleague gives when she has decided you are a person she can stand beside during a storm. At exactly 7:30, Tiana appeared in the front windows, right on time, in a white dress I recognized from a rehearsal dinner years ago. She had spent hours getting ready. Hair perfectly set, makeup careful, jewelry bright. She stepped inside with confidence and scanned the room. When she saw us, the expression fell right off her face. She stood at the entrance, frozen for a long second, and diners began to notice. She is pretty, Jordan said softly. She also looks like regret just walked into her evening. The hostess approached Tiana to ask if she needed help. Tiana shook her head and stared at our table as if willpower alone could remove Jordan from the chair across from me. Then she started walking toward us, purpose in her stride, anger gathering at her shoulders. A waiter stepped out from a side aisle carrying a tray crowded with wine glasses. Tiana did not see him. The collision was instant and total. The entire tray flipped. Red wine flew across her white dress, the waiter's vest, and the gleaming floor. Glasses shattered. The restaurant fell into a hush that felt theatrical. Tiana stood in the center of it, soaked and stunned. "Oh my," Jordan whispered, steady. This is not how she pictured this. I stood, slow and calm, and the silence gave me the room. "Folks," I said, dry but polite. "Meet my ex-wife." Still making an entrance. A laugh came from the back, then another, and tension shifted into a hum of conversation like a crowd settling after a brief interruption to a play. Tiana looked around and saw the attention had moved from me to her, and it was not the attention she wanted. She turned and ran out of the restaurant, heels clattering, red wine tracing a path behind her like punctuation. I sat back down. Jordan lifted her glass. "Well," she said, "that was educational." The waiter apologized, his eyes flicking with the kind of shared understanding that does not require words. I left a large tip, because nobody expects to be part of someone else's lesson. We ate and talked work, reservoir pressures, a stubborn issue with mud weight, a new training module April wanted to implement. The evening returned to its rhythm. After dinner, we stepped into the cool air. "What happens now?" Jordan asked as we reached the parking lot. "Now she's out of my life," I said. "For good." "You are sure?" I showed her my phone. 3 missed calls and 2 text messages, all from Tiana. I deleted them without reading and blocked the number. "That is a boundary," Jordan said, clear and final. The next morning my phone rang. "Maya, what did you do?" she demanded. She came home humiliated and sobbing. Red wine everywhere. "She says you embarrassed her on purpose." "I had dinner," I said. I gave her the facts. Another guest, an accident with a tray, a moment that went public in a quiet room. "She is devastated," Maya said. "Good," I said evenly. Maybe now she understands what it feels like to have her life reduced to a joke by someone who does not respect it. That is cold. No colder than being told your career is worthless and being handed divorce papers because you refuse to shrink. Silence held the line for a few seconds. "She says she loves you," Maya said. "She loves what I can provide." "Those are not the same thing," I replied. "So that is it. You are done." "I was done the day she called my work a joke," I said. Everything after that has been her catching up to where I already stood. I blocked Maya's number after we hung up. There would be no intermediaries. The flight back to North Dakota was peaceful. No notifications. No performances. I sat by the window and watched the ground pull itself into tidy fields and long roads. When I walked into the trailer office that evening, Leon greeted me with a grin. "Corporate approved your expansion plans," he said. "You are leading it." I shook his hand. "Let us get to work." The expansion came with a bigger budget, new equipment, and the authority to build the team I needed. We hired 3 more operators, a maintenance lead with 20 years in the game, and a logistics coordinator named Isaiah, who could make trucks appear where trucks did not exist half an hour before. The site swelled, and the work grew more complex, but the system we built was clean. We hit our targets without cutting corners, and our accident-free streak kept lengthening like a banner nobody touched because it felt sacred. In 18 months, I carried a different weight in the company. My name moved through rooms I did not enter. The people in those rooms knew what it meant. One night, I sat on my porch and thought about the white dress. I pictured it folded in a laundry basket, stained beyond repair. It used to mean something. Now it was just fabric. A connection request appeared in my inbox from a large firm based in Houston. They were expanding across the Permian and into the Eagle Ford, and they wanted to talk. The next week I took that call. The role they described had real authority. Regional Director of Operations. Multiple sites, significant budget, teams spread across West Texas and southern New Mexico. I did not make a decision immediately. I walked the site, talked to my crew, made lists of what I would be leaving and what I would be reaching for. Leon told me that leadership is not always about geography. You build a standard here, he said. If you go, make sure you carry it with you. April said, if they give you the room to keep the safety culture intact, take it. If not, stay and keep doing work you respect. I asked myself the same quiet question I had asked on that porch with a beer. Who do you want to be when someone else's comfort tries to set your limits? I took the job. The move to Texas was efficient. The company provided a car, a relocation package, and an office that looked out over a landscape that carved itself out of the earth like the work we did had a pulse. In the parking lot below my window, a fleet of trucks came and went daily, and the energy of a growing operation ran like current under every conversation. My first week as regional director, I visited each site, sat with the supervisors, asked questions, and listened longer than I spoke. In Midland, a driller named Curtis showed me a casing issue that had been chewing through budgets. We resolved it in one meeting with a redesign and a revised vendor contract. In San Angelo, a night operator walked me through a workover plan with more insight than half the managers I had met in the last 5 years. I told him to keep going and looped in the engineering team. In Laredo, a young engineer named Renee, different last name, not the one you just thought of, proposed a training module for new hires that cut incidents by 30% within a quarter. We rolled it out across the region. The work was hard and worthy. I drove at dawn and returned at night. I stood on sites and felt the weight of the decisions I made reflect in the safety board and the production screen. Months passed. My accounts grew again, not with excess, but with the kind of abundance that forms from discipline. I sent money to my parents without fanfare, so they could pay off the last of a mortgage they had carried for 25 years. I still did not hear from Tiana. Word came through industry friends that she moved back in with her parents. The house was gone. The cards were maxed. The performance had closed. I felt no satisfaction and no regret, just a quiet acceptance that some stories end exactly when they should. One afternoon, a young operator asked me if I ever thought I had been too harsh with my ex-wife. He had heard only fragments, people talk. I said, there is a difference between being harsh and being clear. People who do not respect your work will ask you to distort yourself to make them comfortable. If you say no, they will call it cruel. Call it what you want. It is still necessary. He nodded and went back to work, and I returned to the emails on my screen, approving budgets that would move steel and people across thousands of miles. In the evening, I drove home along a stretch of highway that ran past open land and long fences. The sky in Texas can feel like a room without walls. I parked, climbed the stairs to my place, and stood for a moment at the window. The office lights in the building across the way were soft squares in the glass, and my reflection looked back at me like a person I recognized fully for the first time in years. I made dinner, simple and quiet, and ate in peace. The phone stayed silent. The silence was not empty. It was full of everything I had built by refusing to apologize for wanting a larger life than the one someone else designed for me. I thought of the morning under the kitchen sink, the slow drip I tightened into stillness, the call that opened a different road. I thought of the long nights in North Dakota, the way a crew becomes a family of necessity and trust, and the day a regional manager asked whether I was ready to stay long-term because he already knew my answer. I thought of a white dress stained red, of a restaurant returning to its conversations, of a lesson learned by the one person who needed to learn it most. There was never any victory in her humiliation. The victory was in the boundary that held. I set my dishes in the sink and turned off the kitchen light. The next morning I woke early, pulled on my boots, and drove to a site where sunrise met steel. My team waited, engineers, operators, mechanics, and the day's problems laid themselves out like a map ready to be walked. We got to work. We built something you could stand on. We made decisions that mattered and lived with them. We raised a standard and refused to lower it for anyone who did not respect it. That was the point all along. If you enjoyed this story, Please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.